Hello, Fire Fam. Welcome back. Today, we are going to get into the lies the internet is telling you about health because I hear this every week with clients. And don't get me wrong, I also believed a lot of what I saw online. Even now, I still have to constantly check myself on things that I'm reading and seeing online because there is always something new coming out. It can feel really exciting, but when you really take a look, take a moment to read the science, you can understand that with certain things, there are definitely an agenda. A lot of things cycle back and just get rebranded in time. And there are just so many people pouring into the internet now, which is beautiful. And I absolutely love that. However, it's easy for things to just get passed along and misconstrued, leading us to believe things that are not actually true because people will say them with a great amount of conviction. And again, even I fall for it way more often than I should. And I don't even want to use the saying like fall for it, because that's almost implying like you're gullible. And it's really not that. It's that people, even people that you trust, can be wrong. It happens. Just because a lot of people are saying it does not mean that it is the right thing. You always want to fact check what you are seeing and hearing online. Even better, go to a trusted professional on the subject. Yes, even AI gets these things wrong. When you Google certain things or try to just double check and make sure that they're right, you just never know. So definitely go to the science or go to a professional who has access to the science or the education on that topic. That is always going to be your best bet on this. But I'm going to do my best to share as much science and information around these top 8 facts that I gathered for you. So the top 8 things that I hear the most, or also one of them I don't hear at all, which I want to throw out there because I almost think it's like a lie that it's not important, that people are not talking about it. So without further ado, let's get into these 8 topics that are backed by science, okay? Here, you can trust that what you are reading and listening to is accurate, okay? Reading, I guess, I do a blog edit of my posts too, so you can read them online if you're in a rush or you prefer reading. You can see this on YouTube. You can catch this on my podcast, of course. So yeah, wherever you need to look, you can find me. All right, so the first one, number 1, the lie is that you are carb sensitive. You are likely not carb sensitive. This is a phrase that is really interesting because I'm not really even sure what being carb sensitive means. When I hear people say or describe themselves as carb sensitive, what I really think is happening is that they have believed that the inflammation or bloating or weight gain that they're experiencing has to be blamed on something. And because carbohydrates are commonly demonized in the media, we tend to say that it's because of carbohydrates. Is there some truth that, yes, you can have a little bit of bloating with carbohydrates? Sure, to some degree, but at the same time, if you're eating really balanced, hydrating really well, you're not going to experience bloating. On the subject of bloating though, some people think that every time after they eat, they bloat. Part of that is normal. Like if you're putting something in an empty bag, the bag will expand. Okay, that, yes, is going to happen. And so don't think that you're doing something wrong because your stomach doesn't look the way it looked when you woke up this morning to how you're ending your day. You just put food in there. You're supposed to be putting food in there. That's not really changing your body composition. The bloating is temporary. When bloating is something to be concerned of is if it's a painful, hard bloat. That's very different. It's tender to the touch. That's a completely different experience than eating too much or just eating even normal amounts of food. That will lead to your stomach expanding, okay? But back to the carb sensitivity. I want to get into some of the things and the reasons that carbs are actually really important. Because I I'm just going to talk about these things. I was about to talk about something else that's another key point. I tend to love to jump around because so many things are just like, they all go together. But with carbohydrates, they're important because they spare protein. They prevent muscle breakdown for energy use. They regulate blood glucose levels. They serve as the major source of energy during exercise. They serve as the only source of energy for red blood cells and under anaerobic conditions. So if you're an athlete, that's very important. It provides fiber, vitamins, minerals. It provides B vitamins. It binds to cholesterol in the GI tract. Shout out to Cheerios, they really made that a thing. They aid in the prevention of constipation. They aid in healthy digestion, help you feel full, nourish gut bacteria and microbiome, provide performance in sports, and it forms the backbone for DNA and RNA, as well as improving your mood. That is a lot of things that carbohydrates do. They are not evil, they are vital to your health. You need to consume carbs. You should be consuming carbs with every meal. Unless you had like some extreme form of diabetes or gestational diabetes, there are small minor exceptions and adjustments and tweaks that you can make or maybe recommended. But even then, you still need carbs. Like especially if you're pregnant, you need carbs. You cannot avoid them. That is not optimal for you nor your baby. But even just as a regular human caring for your own physical body, you absolutely 1,000 million trillion % need carbohydrates on a daily basis. And no, not under 100 grams of carbohydrates. If you're someone that macro counts or have tracked before, this is again something that people often try to do, is stay under 100 grams of carbs. Again, I'm not sure what these numbers are exactly rooted in, but they're things that online just for some reason caught on and people started following them. Or also like with these MyFitnessPal calculators or Lose It app and other things that I've seen, I'm not sure exactly how they're extrapolating these calculations. It might be based on really, we'll say like simplistic math in terms of how many calories equals 1 pound of body weight. I want to say that's where I think it's coming from, but that is not perfect math in terms of how you should change the number of calories you consume in a day. So you always want to be wary and careful with that information, especially because it can take you too low in certain nutrients. Okay. So you're likely not carb sensitive, you just need to balance your diet. You're just not eating the right ratio of things. You're not too sensitive to them, you're not bloating more consuming them than most other people. It is likely just a concept of needing to find balance with what you are doing in your overall day. Okay. Number 2, keeping everything low fat or fat free. This needs to go as well. And I'm going to explain to you, again, I'm going to give you that beautiful list of what fats are actually really important for. 20 to 25% of your diet should be coming from healthy fats. Fats provide energy. They provide a storage form of energy. I literally just repeated myself. Yeah, I made this list. Sorry, maybe when I was a little too sleepy. Anyway, it aids in body temperature regulation. It protects and cushions vital organs. It prevents the compression of your intestines. It enhances the absorption of vitamins A, D, E, and K, which you absolutely 1,000% need in your body. I'm really loving this 1,000%. I'm not sure, I don't normally say that, but I'm really emphasizing that because it is so important. So you cannot absorb these vitamins without fats, which are essential vitamins. Fat also aids in making your hair soft and shiny. It moisturizes the skin. It makes up cell membranes. It makes up actually 60% of the brain. This is the primary source of fuel for the heart. It's essential for growth and brain development. It aids in nerve conduction. Nerds, hey. It induces and promotes satiety, which keeps you full and satiated. It takes longer to digest, so it keeps you fuller for longer periods of time, which is important. I know sometimes people are like, I don't want to feel full for a long time because I want to be able to eat. But then you're naturally consuming more of things that you don't necessarily need because you're not having balance. So you want that satiety. Fats are also a precursor for sex hormones, cortisol, bile acids, and vitamin D. They also enhance the taste of texture of food. It releases leptin, which acts on the brain to increase or decrease your appetite. Fats aid in regulating blood pressure, heart rate, blood clotting, the nervous system, immune responses, inflammation response, and allergic reactions. There are so many things that you need fats for. So always choosing like a fat-free dressing or a low-fat milk or a fat-free creamer, it's not really as helpful as diet culture leads you to think that it is. There are certain types of fats that you don't want to over consume, like animal fats. But if you're eating, again, a healthy, balanced diet, you're not going to be over consuming anything. If you are planning what you need to take in for a day and choosing healthy sources of fats like nuts and seeds, a nice grass-fed butter, olive oil is another good one. Olives, of course. There are so many great sources of fats. Avocado, another one. You want to consume these mindfully and incorporate them in your day, making sure, again, you're getting at least like 10 to 15 grams, sometimes more, in your meals to make sure you're getting enough fats for your day. And of course, that number really starts to go up if you're an athlete or you're active. Fats are that long-term fuel source if you are someone that's active. They are important and they are essential. The ones that we want to really be careful of not over-consuming would be like animal fats from meats that we're consuming, choosing more processed fats, like things that can be found in candy bars or things that are found in a lot of store-bought dressings, like soybean oils. They're not harmful in small amounts, but you don't want those to be your primary sources of fat. When those are where we are consuming a majority of our fat, that's where we tend to end up with imbalance in our lab work when it comes to our triglycerides and all other types of cholesterol, things of that nature. But it's still essential. You need to get it in. You don't want to avoid it. You want to make sure you're including the good types, okay? Number 3, and I've talked about this one as its own entire podcast, more protein is not better. This is a lie. We have this huge obsession with protein in America, and I want to hit you with some percentages, which I had to look up because I knew that they're going to be really spot on with what I thought they would be in my mind. But of course, I want to give you the truth, the facts, the research. 3 to 5% of Americans don't hit their protein needs. And that is likely due to underconsumption or being in a food desert or not having adequate access to protein-containing foods. So it is such an uncommon problem. There are many other things in reality that are significantly higher than that percent, right? So 95 to 97% of people are getting the protein that they need without even trying, without even knowing. They're just getting it. So this obsession with needing more and more protein, like it's something that it's better than all the other nutrients, is a false belief. Because we think of it as fueling lean body mass, we tend to forget that the other elements of the foods that we are consuming, fats and carbohydrates, also do that. Fats and carbs are energy sources for our muscles as well. Protein is the building blocks of that and many other things, including hormones and like hundreds of things in our body are created of protein. So yes, protein is important, but it is not better than everything else. And you do not need to be over consuming it the way it is pushed in the media. Okay. If you are more curious, I would go back a few episodes actually, to listen to more about protein if you want to get into the specifics of how much to be taking in, how that should look like in your day. But I don't want to dive further into it because I said it, and what you really need to know is you're probably getting enough protein. You don't have to worry about over consuming it and putting in every single snack and item and drink that you have. You're going to be okay without the protein water, without the protein coffee. I love you. You're getting enough protein. Okay. Number 4, this is the one that's like not a lie, but I feel like it's low-key a secret more so that no one is talking about. Fiber is so important for your health. 90% of the population does not consume enough fiber. And again, this is a number that I looked up and referenced a few studies for. Again, that's crazy. 90% of that is like the opposite of the protein statistics, right? 90% of people are not getting enough fiber. No one is talking about how to get enough fiber. So the average fiber intake is about 15 grams when we really should be consuming between 25 to 35 grams of fiber every single day. Where this fiber comes from is also important. Preferably, you're not relying on something like a Quest bar or a protein bar that has chicory root fiber or Fiber One bars to consume all of the fiber that you actually need. You want the fiber to come from whole food sources like lentils, beans, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds. These foods are not only for fiber, which supports digestion, blood sugar control, heart health, but also for the broader nutrient density. They provide vitamins, minerals, and anti-inflammatory compounds that help reduce the risk of chronic diseases. And so often we don't think about chronic disease until we are faced with it. Prevention is what I specifically wanted to study in school because it's all about not needing to take it to the level, because the fear that comes into you when your doctor is telling you that you have high cholesterol or your lab work is off balance or they don't know what's going on with your body, that's scary. That is hard to go through, and that is not an easy journey. And it shouldn't take that fear for you to need to kind of like kick yourself into gear. And you know what? It's okay. Sometimes we need that smack in the face. A lot of those things we can change, but some of those things, it can be too late if we don't recognize it soon enough. You need to eat balanced, nutritious meals your entire life. This is something you have to be doing from day one of birth. In your 20s and maybe sometimes even into your 30s, your body can tolerate almost like mistreatment in the sense of not getting the proper nutrition. But eventually, that can run short. That course runs short and something happens. And these things are happening to people younger and younger because it's not taught enough that it is important to eat whole foods, especially fiber. Like, again, a lot of your whole foods, most of your whole foods contain some source of fiber, but that's not what our diet looks like. We do have a lot of processed items in our diet, which is okay. Again, it's not that you need to avoid those, but I would say, again, 80-20 rule. 80% of your foods really should be from whole foods, and 20%, that's where you can kind of play around with some of those fun foods and things that are processed or packaged. But you really want to make it a priority to consume more of those whole foods. And do it before one day it smacks you in the face, or unfortunately you don't get the chance to respond and it can cause permanent damage. So make it a point to consume mindfully, cook more of your food than you're going out to eat. That's really where you're going to find the greatest success. Number 5, calories in versus calories out is what matters. I kind of already touched on this, but I want to hit you with another statistic here. So you want to be consuming whole foods, not just the calories that you're reading off of labels. Sometimes there is a degree of control that we feel from knowing the exact number of calories, so we like choosing things with labels so that we can track them perfectly. But listen to this. There is 20% room for error on nutrition labels. That means companies can be 20% inaccurate with what they are saying is in their products. So they can say there's 20% less calories than there actually is in that item. And they can also say there's 20% more of certain vitamins, minerals that they want to promote than are actually in the product. Isn't that kind of scary? So we rely on these items to provide extra vitamin C or extra iron, things like that, like cereals and other types of processed products. But we will never know how accurate those labels are. So you always want to have that concept of there being that 20% room for error, which is significant. That is extremely statistically significant, okay? And these are manufacturing rules. They benefit the companies, of course, right? So they're going to be able to push and promote certain elements of their product to make it sell better, to reach a certain market. And a really smart salesman is going to use that to their advantage. And unfortunately, it's not with your best interest in mind. It is often in the best interest of the business. And so you have to face that truth, that reality. And I'm not saying it to scare you, but to encourage you to choose those whole foods, because it's not as simple as calories in versus calories out. You're not burning exactly as much as your Fitbit or your watch is telling you, or MyFitnessPal is explaining. For most of my clients, I'm not fluctuating what you eat based on how you train. We look at it as what you're doing in the scope of a week to find that balance, because you can't go do this like calories in versus calories math out every day and expect that it's really mathing the way the numbers are reading. There's no perfect way to know exactly how much someone is expending. We try to study it and there's ways to do it, but even the most accurate way still has room for error as to how much energy you expend in a day. So you really have to trust your body in this and understand that it's not this simple math or calculator that a lot of apps are saying that it is. Talk to a dietitian. Nudge, nudge, me. If you have health insurance and you live in the state of Pennsylvania or New Jersey, you can come see me for free. Isn't that crazy? Your insurance will literally pay for you to come talk to a dietitian. So if you haven't taken advantage of that, you should. This is your time, okay? Hit me up. I will check your insurance for you, let you know what your coverage is. Most insurances cover anywhere from as little as 2 annually for preventative health, all the way up to unlimited sessions as needed until you get into a place where you feel confident with your health. Most companies give you preventative nutrition benefits. So it's something that's worth looking into or reaching out to someone that can help you get that exact information, okay? Okay, number 6. We are coming close to the end of the list, guys. So we have 3 more for you. Number 6, doing Pilates to avoid getting bulky. Okay, I'm not a Pilates hater. I'm 0% hating on it at all. I think it's great. And a priority for your movement should be having fun and not always obsessing over the perfect calorie burn or this is better for your body than that. Everything is individualized. Movement is specific to the individual. Some people are going to do better with high intensity things. Some people do better with low intensity. Some people do better with a mix. Some people exclusively do yoga and walking. Some people do mostly weight training and count their steps in a day. It can work so many different ways. But again, I want to hit you with some numbers on how much muscle you can actually build in a year, because again, this is something I've heard, especially with women, because women tend to fear this concept of like getting too bulky or building too much muscle. I've had clients come in saying like, oh, I'm really prone to building muscle, so I don't weight train. Like I love that, and like maybe you have an easier time building muscle than some other people, because that's also true. But a lot of times women are saying that more from things that they've heard online, or they find that their nutrition changes, or they're not really training with the right intensity in order for it to really optimize what's going on in your body. But if you were under the guidance of a personal trainer or worked with a dietitian who is also a certified personal trainer, again, hey, that's me. If you're a listener, you need to have a conversation with me if you're confused about this, because I would love, 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 love to help you. But anyway, back to these numbers. So if you are starting, if you weightlifted for the first time in your life ever, okay, so say you're someone that has never once lifted a weight and you wanted to start. The very first year, if you are doing your best with nutrition, and again, intentional nutrition, you could gain anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds of muscle. And this is like a novice, absolute beginner, never ever once touched a weight. So if you played sports before, anything like that, you are excluded from this number. And this is for men. So if you're a chickadee, cut those numbers in half. 5 to 10 pounds max. Your first year, and I'm talking your first year, this number decreases. So the longer that you've done any type of resistance training, whether it's Pilates or yoga or any body weight type of stuff, any type of movement, you're an avid runner, you are past year 1, you're past year 2, okay? You're doing resistance training, and this is going to impact how your body builds muscle as time goes on. So eventually, if you started weight training now, okay, again, 5 to 10 pounds for a chickadee poo the first year. Year 2, again, 5 to 10 if you're a man. If you are a woman, again, cut that in half, 2.5 to 5 pounds year 2, okay? Year 3 and on, at most, at absolute most, if you are a male, 2 to 5 pounds. If you are a female, 1 to 2.5 pounds that you can build. And I want to emphasize that it is intentional timing with nutrient intake that impacts this number. So if you are not eating in a surplus, you are not going to just be magically gaining these numbers. So if you're a woman and you are in your 30s, I'm using myself as an example, I'm not building too much muscle these days because I've been lifting for a very long time. And as you might notice, I've not increased in size by 5 to 10 pounds every single year in muscle mass. Wouldn't that be cool? But unfortunately, that's not a reality. And we'd all be walking around looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime if that were true. So keep in mind that in order to do this, again, you have to be super intentional with how you are consuming foods, when you are consuming foods, doing a progressive overload with your training, and eating in a way that puts you high in protein, high in carbs, high in fats to support this muscle growth. So if you are eating, we'll say, as a female, somewhere between 1,600 to 2,000 calories a day on average, you are probably not building much muscle regardless at this point, you know, if you are further along in your training at some point, or again, you've been training for X number of years, you know, have some variety with what you do. You're always going to want to do some type of strength training and something that's like pushing you, right? I mean, I love strength training. I think we should all do it at least once or twice in a week, just some like regular gym resistance stuff where we're really pushing our limits. Complement that with Pilates, complement that with yoga, complement that with walking. I love the variety because you're getting to see how your body responds to different things, and you're having some differences in your week. So if you're having days where you push harder, follow that with days where you're not pushing as hard so you have time for recovery. That's going to help your metabolism, it's going to help your muscle growth, and the more muscles you have, the better your metabolism is, okay? And also the longer you live. Muscle is really important for longevity. The more muscle mass you have, the longer of a life that you have. And isn't that what we all want? To live a healthy, long life, to be independent and not need someone to take care of us. I mean, of course, there are exceptions to every rule, but we want to stay as independent as we can for as long as we can. When we're young, we think we're invincible and these things don't matter, but as time goes on, reality hits you, and these things do matter. Our bodies can't ignore the things it used to be able to ignore in our 20s, like lack of sleep and drinking lots of alcohol and, you know, just like burning the candle on both ends. Our bodies are not able to tolerate that as much. When you start to notice in your 30s, you have to pay attention to these things a lot more. And as time goes on, it just increases. These things become more and more important each decade you're existing. Okay. Number 7, self-care is not a product that you buy. I see this often online with people saying, I'm doing this as self-care, I'm doing bath bombs as self-care, I'm doing face mask as self-care, I'm doing this skin routine as self-care. Like, I love that. You should do it. I think that's great because, yeah, there's something about being intentional when you're touching your body and relaxing and taking a bath. The piece of self-care that I think is very often overlooked is your nervous system. Sitting down and watching a TV show is not rewiring your nervous system. If you are super stressed all day long and you have a really intense job and then you come home and just like watch something to dissociate from your mind, like trash TV, which again, yes, you should do this sometimes, but that's not enough. You can't just like ignore the intensity and the stress that you experience for 8 hours, come home and dissociate and forget, and then like wake up and do it again. No, if you're experiencing that stress throughout your job, that requires you to increase your self-regulation practices, your nervous system practices, so that you increase your capacity to handle more stress. It is building calmness in the face of adversity. This is an actual physical practice that we have to do, which goes into point number 8. You can't think your way into feeling better. I love therapy. I think it's great. I think we should all experience it because it makes us more conscious and aware individuals. But that gap, if we exclusively only do therapy as our means of exploring the mind and to help us work through challenges, we are missing a really important piece of the puzzle. Regulation is something you physically practice in your body. It's not something that you talk yourself into or talk through. Again, you need that awareness around what's going on in your body. And then once you have the awareness, then you can experiment with the physical means and the physical practices of moving that stuck energy in the body, whatever trauma your body is holding on to, whatever emotion is stuck in there physically. And if you've heard this list before, I got this list from Kate Northrup, who I was listening to on a podcast with James Wedmore, and she mentioned this list, and I'm obsessed with this list. I might have added some things onto it. This might be the original list, but nonetheless, these are the things that I recommend to people to help metabolize stress through the body and like actually physically work it through. So it's the piece that just talking about isn't going to get you through. That list includes movement, EFT, breath work, crying, laughter, creative expression, co-regulation with a safe person, and orgasms. So these things are all going to help move what is in the body that needs to move, that talking can't do alone. Okay, check on your nervous system. These are important. All right, and if you've walked through all of this and you're like, dang, this is all fire and I want to take my game to the next level, I want to be the best version of myself, I want to tap into these different practices, these physical movement practices, to couple what I know with nutrition, to move into a place of intuitive eating, to be really grounded in my health practices, you need to check out Body and Soul Freedom. This is my signature program. It is a 12-week program designed to walk you through all of this, so that you really can be that next level version that is showing up confident, that doesn't need to track every calorie that goes into their body. You just feel lean, you feel energized, you feel healthy, your nervous system is on fire. These things help you do the other things that are really important to you, like be present with your children, or to get into that relationship that you're really wanting to be in, to have the capacity to hold that next level position in your job. Building a healthy foundation in your body and your nervous system is what gets you those bigger, greater, expansive things in your life. If you're wanting to chat more, you can definitely sign up for a free session with me to talk through it. Or if you're ready to go, you can also just click the landing page link that's on my website and sign up. Sign up for Body and Soul Freedom. This is like literally the best thing that you will ever do. I just had someone that signed up a few days ago, and she went through the first module and was already just like, wow, I've never thought about my health and the shifts in this way. I've never tied all of these things together. I feel so much lighter mentally, physically. And you know, she's been on this journey with our health for a while. She's actually been one of my clients for an extended period of time. But when we finally tapped into what I offer in Body and Soul Freedom, which I encouraged from the start, this was that piece that she needed. She felt like, dang, I wish I did this from the jump. She wishes she started a year ago, because this, coupling it with everything else that we had been working on in the year, was really the little piece that just made it all click. So the things outside of nutrition really started to feel embodied. So it stopped feeling like she was kind of pushing as much as she had been. It was like she was trying so hard, and then she did this first module and suddenly she was like, wow, things are feeling a little more effortless. And that's the magic that Body and Soul Freedom gives people. And so this is just her week 1. I cannot wait for what her next few weeks look like. We already started talking about what those next few weeks would look like for her, and the energy and her beliefs in it actually happening. She had so much resistance when we first met a year ago to any of these things being possible. And now she's like, yes, these things are actually true for me. They're possible for me. I'm going to do them. And this is what I needed to do it. And, you know, these are not my words. Yes, they are the words that I'm saying, but this is how she was feeling. This is what she was expressing in our last session. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys, that this stuff really works. It's not all in your head. This is a physical practice that we're going to get into, and I will teach you exactly how to do that. All right. Well, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys again next week.